Ron never really liked women. He enjoyed using them, but that's not quite the same thing. He married one, had a child with her, and worked overtime to avoid being at home. Eventually, Ron got bored, met a younger woman at work, and had an affair until his wife found out. She divorced him and got full custody of the child, whom Ron never really loved, but fought for just to spite his ex. She didn't even care about my feelings, Ron complained to his therapist. A woman therapist, no less. Just another reason to be bitter. After that, Ron delved into the darker corners of the internet, the manosphere, accelerationism. He even chatted with members of the Atomwaffen division, who introduced him to Crowley, Anton LaVey, and eventually the Order of Nine Angles. It was in the occult that Ron finally found something he connected with. He began researching intensely. At first, the talk of demons seemed absurd, metaphorical at best. Then he tried psychedelics and met one. That encounter stripped him of any doubt. Ron immersed himself in history, hermetics, and demonology. He mingled with transhumanists, antinatalists, and people who believed consciousness was a cosmic mistake, or that it didn't exist at all. One day, while reading an old text on archive.org, he found instructions for summoning a demon. Not just any demon, but the demon, Gangbrute. The ritual required time and human sacrifices. Ron abducted his first victim from an underground parking garage, chloroformed her, and took her to a shack he'd built deep in the woods. He performed the ritual, and a few weeks later, her pregnancy began to show. 9 months later, he cut a fully formed, still beating heart out of her. It weighed 10 kilograms. She died, and Ron buried her remains in the woods. As instructed, he submerged the heart in a nearby swamp. He then kidnapped and ritually impregnated 7 more women, each one to give birth to a different organ. Lungs, liver, bladder, kidneys, stomach, intestines, and brain. When it was all done, when the women were dead and buried, and the organs sunken in the swamp, he began the final part of the summoning, drowning 12 virgins. He held each one under with a hateful grip, letting the swamp water fill their young lungs. Then he recited the incantation. The swamp began to bubble, and the bubbles rose and popped, turning into gargling sounds. Sounds that Ron understood as the language of demons. In that moment, he knew he had been initiated. Gangbrute rose out of the evaporating bog. "My lord, my darkest king," Ron cried out in ecstasy. But Gangbrute hissed, "I am no king," revealing herself as a coalescence of human parts, mud, roots, frogs, snakes, and pure terror. Ron screamed. "But queen, origin of all demons," she continued, driving a seed of horror into his mind, freezing him in the moment of its blossoming. Then she revived the 20 who had died for her, the mothers of her parts, and together they began the destruction of mankind.